The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of Green Acres and our guests. These general gardening tips and suggestions may work for you, as well as those from alternative sources. When using any garden products or tools, read and follow all label directions. And learn how to make your yard summer strong at bewatersmart.info.
The Green Acres Garden Podcast is the podcast dedicated to helping gardeners hone their growing skills while we celebrate our love of plants. So whether you're new to growing or a seasoned gardener, you're sure to learn something new. Join the fun as we have conversations with world-class growers, passionate green thumbs, and professional garden experts from Green Acres Nursery and Supply. Listen every week. We'll answer questions you didn't know you had. And away we grow. What's up, all you beautiful botanists and gorgeous green thumbs? Welcome to the show. This is the Green Acres Garden Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Jordan, lover of plants, probably like yourselves. We actually went on a field trip this week. So much fun. I cannot wait to share this episode with people. We went out to Zaiger Genetics, right in the heart of California, out there in Modesto. This is the home of the Pluot and so many other delicious fruits. This week, we're getting specific about interspecifics.
Oh, I like that.
Last week's episode, Austin, we talked about cactus and succulents.
Yes.
This week, we're doing kind of a 180, but things are still going to be succulent.
But this is also the time of the year that these fruit trees were popping, and we went to the home, the mecca of where all these cool
the
stone
epicenter
fruits come from. Like you mentioned, the Pluot, right?
Yep.
The Pluot
Apriums.
came from this all came from Zaiger's Genetics. Why don't you tell everyone where we went?
So it was pretty cool. So Zaiger Genetics, you'd think it's whatever. It
sounds like a laboratory.
Yes, right. But it's not. It's a farm and a laboratory in a way.
Yeah.
We're out there. We got to meet with Lacey Gardner. She is the granddaughter of Floyd Zaiger, a gentleman who just dedicated his professional life to developing and hybridizing some of the most delicious stone fruits. I'm talking peaches, nectarines, plums, apricots, and then hybridizing all of them together. We got to taste test so many different ones, what they call interspecific varieties. So plum varieties that have been hybridized with other stone fruits, Pluots, plum cots, Apriums, and everything in between. A lot of it we got to taste test, Austin.
Oh, yeah, that's the best part.
Didn't even have names.
Yeah.
They're unnamed. It was pretty cool.
It's the fruit of the future.
The fruit of the future, yes, exactly. And so we got to peek into the future, and guess what, Austin? The future, and I'm sure you know this.
Delicious.
It's
It's delicious. The best part about being there is the orchard full of trees without names that are things they're just hybridizing. They're like taking, I want the color from this one, the sugar content from this one, and they combine it, to get interesting shapes, colors, textures, fun, cool things. And you get to walk around, grab a piece of fruit, taste it, and then just throw it over your shoulder. Some are good, some are great. A lot of them that we visited were incredible.
I didn't taste a bad one the whole day.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. Even the moment we got there, we step in through the front door, and we're supposed to meet with Lacey and our good friend Ed Laivo.
Yes, Ed joined us along for the ride.
Whose passion and enthusiasm for fruit trees is, I've never seen anybody with this much knowledge and enthusiasm, and he just loves it. He lives and breathes it. He has over 40 years experience. He's kind of like the godfather of the backyard orchard culture, where you can kind of bring these trees that have been developed on farms, and some of them for farms, but a lot of them are developed for us, for the home grower. And his whole background is, how do we be successful growing these beautiful, delicious fruit trees in our own home landscapes, making it something that you can just incorporate into your landscape, both ornamentally and something that is just a delicious edible fruit tree. I loved it. When we walked in there, did you see what Ed was doing?
What was he doing?
They put him to work.
Yeah, he was seeding or
yes,
something.
Yes, he was cracking open. They had soaked some of the pits overnight. He was cracking the pits and getting to the actual fleshy seed, separating those, and those were all going to get sent off to the next person, who then we saw was planting them in some perlite beds. Those will get sprouted into saplings. They all get grown, and then over time,
over many years,
they will be selected for the best one. The best of the best will only be selected, and then those will then be hybridized further. Pretty cool stuff. I don't want to get too deep into it because I want to.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into our interviews. We sat down with both Lacey and Ed, and they walk us through what they're doing out there, and just like you said, how cool it is that we get to put this in our own backyards and how to grow these trees and enjoy this amazing fruit. That's what it's all about.
It was so cool to learn about the process, the timeline. This is a labor of love and patience. So I was blown away. Lacey was so awesome. We got to meet her last year through Zoom, But I honestly, I loved it being in person, seeing the farm. You wouldn't know. This is just a little farm on the side of the road there, but some of the most delicious, wildly beautiful. I mean, just the colors, the flavors, the sugar spots. They had these freckles of sugar. I just loved it. And so I got to learn a bunch. And really, I walked out of there with just a belly full of fruit. It was so good. And a bag. They hooked us up. I got to share some with the family. So I cannot wait to share this interview with people today.
All right, here we go. This is our interview with Lacey Gardner and Ed Laivo down in the orchard at Zaiger's Genetics in Modesto, California. Here we go.
We're in the middle of the valley, in the heart of California, in farm country, and you guys do something really incredible here. And I don't think people maybe don't know what is going on here at Zaiger Genetics. Can you tell us a little about the history and what you guys actually do here?
I'm Lacey Gardner. I work here at Zaiger's Genetics. My grandfather started this business back in the early 60s. He was working with a guy named Fred Anderson. And Fred Anderson worked for Luther Burbank. Everyone who knows who Luther Burbank is mostly. So he started breeding nectarines and fruit trees. And he went off on his own because he decided he could probably do it better. And that's when he started Zaiger's Genetics. And basically it's hand-pollinating, cross-pollinating, doing the things that bees do, but with more purpose. So that way we create new and different varieties of stone fruit.
I love it. We were just out in the field today. We taste tested so many different types of fruit, all stone fruit, a lot of what you guys call interspecific, because so correct me if I'm wrong, but you've hybridized them so much that you're getting all these interesting breeds and crossbreeds between not just different plum varieties, but then you're mixing plums and nectarines and apricots and peaches, and they all kind of get blended up, and what comes out the other end is something spectacular.
That's right. So we started back 30, 40 years ago. My grandfather started putting apricots into plums and plums into apricots. And then from then on, we started putting plums into cherries and put nectarines into plums. We mix it all together, and that's how we come up with all of the new varieties here.
I love it. And the ones we tasted today were just, I knew I already came with high expectations, but even with the extremely high expectations, they were just, I threw them out the window. They were so good, Ed. I know Ed loves it. I get so fired up, Lacey, on plants and gardening and growing and eating stuff. I thought it was just me, and then I realized, no, Ed is the true GOAT when it comes to getting fired up and excited and passionate and enthusiastic about all these fruits. So Ed, tell us a little bit about what your connection is to these fruit trees. I know you've had just a big, long, incredible career in this industry. Give us a little tidbit.
Well, let's see. I've been in the business roughly about 50 years. So
a little bit,
yeah. And in the fruit part of the industry, probably focused for the better part of 40 years. And working with the Zaigers, from day one, and working with Floyd, Zaiger, I was introduced to everything that you've just been introduced to in the same fashion, where I, got to go out with a man that I already held in high regard.
So you got to meet her grandfather?
Oh, I worked with him, for years. There's no way that you don't get in this environment and learn. So from day one, I tell the story about my first experience with Floyd was he knew that I was a fruit appreciator.
Like a fruit bat.
Right, and he I got the opinion that he was anxious to meet me when I came over with Craig, threw me in his Lincoln Continental, and we went barreling through this field back here because he was anxious to show me this variety of fruit that he was sure I was going to love. And dust flying everywhere, going through this field in a Lincoln Continental, and I'm going, where am I at? And we got to the end of this one row, and he got out and took this nectarine off this tree, cut it, gave it to me, and it was the best piece of fruit I'd ever had in my life, and I just knew that I was in the presence of a god, immediately.
That is cool.
It was great. It was Arctic Star nectarine.
That's how I felt a little bit today with you and Lacey out there tasting some of these fruits. I was just like, this is just incredible. Yeah. I can't believe I'm here right now. And to know that all the years that it takes for Lacey and her team to bring from the moment you're hybridizing and taking pollen from one parent plant and trying to create that seed to the part where it actually makes it into the market. What do you guys say? It's a 10 years process? Yep. That's pretty incredible. Yeah. At least a decade, yeah. Mm-hmm. How does that make you feel when people are out there testing and tasting this fruit for the first time?
Well, it's always a good feeling when somebody appreciates all the hard work you put in there. Yeah, it's always a good feeling. It's like, this is your child, and now everyone loves it too.
Well, your children are all over the world, I take it, right?
Yeah.
So you've traveled to far off, long, hundreds, thousands of miles from here, and you've been to places where they're serving up and selling your fruit.
Oh yeah, some of our biggest growers are in Chile and in South Africa and Australia and pretty much all over Europe where if you can grow stone fruit.
Climate.
Yeah, any warm climate, that's where our fruit is.
That is cool. But if we want to bring this fruit into our own homes, into our backyards, our front yards even, our backyard orchards, as Ed likes it, why? Why even consider it? Why should people be growing more fruit trees?
Besides being proud you grew your own fruit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it's just like so nice to know where your stuff came from. I mean, we know that commercial orchards, sometimes if you don't want it sprayed or it's always picked a little bit different, the flavor is just so much better when it's a backyard tree.
Yeah, you can just go up and pluck that sucker off
right.
ripe and get to it. How does irrigation and watering affect the quality of your finished fruit? Your fruit out here is spectacular. How do you get it that way?
Well, you have to realize that once you water it, that tree's going to absorb all that water, and sometimes that can water down the flavor of your fruit. So if you know you're going to pick it soon, maybe ease up on the watering for several days before, and that way it'll bring out the flavor a little bit more. Not too much stressful, but,
I always look at it isn't how much water you give a tree, it's how little water do you give a tree to keep it healthy and productive. And I think overwatering is probably the number one problem that people face with growing fruit trees, especially in California where our soils can be incredibly heavy clay, and so that usually results in root rot. And root rot then, of course, can either set back the tree's vigor, in the spring, or can kill the tree.
Because the clay is just
holds too much water, right?
Yeah.
In Modesto, it's a little bit different. We have drainage that's so good that, really sometimes you would have to stand over the tree with a hose just to keep it irrigated. So, there's a big difference. But I think that irrigation becomes a matter of having a good home irrigation system with a clock, and then having, emitters placed around your trees so that whether you're using drip or you're using, spot emitters, because it's all about calibrating the amount of water you put on. And the only way you can do that is by a clock that allows you to say, my ground is plenty saturated, I'm going to wait another day or two and then dial in how much is just enough water. Mulch, number one. So mulch in California is essential. Everything should be mulched. And I like to recommend 4 inches deep outside the, 3 foot outside the drip line of the tree, because the root system goes everywhere, in search of moisture.
Now, what are the benefits? Why is mulch so important for us here?
Well, you cut, one, you keep the root cool, during the hot summer days, all right? Number two, you actually then are creating a barrier to keep evaporation from occurring, so the moisture in the top profile stays even.
Doesn't just get baked out by the sun.
Correct. 3, you extend the time between watering, so that's a water conserving approach. So you get to save water because your mulch acts then, because you're cutting down on that evaporation, and it's all going to perk down through the soil. Now you've got this much better control over how much moisture is in that upper profile.
So the mulch does all those wonderful things, and it also ends up breaking down and becoming part of the soil.
Sure. And it has to be replenished every year. It's just something you do every year.
What are some of the things that you've learned out here, Lacey, just in all your years from growing and cultivating these stone fruits, that would translate for the home grower? What are some of the things that you think, I would never make this mistake, or these are the things that we do that would also benefit a home grower, somebody who's going to grow these at home and want to be successful?
Well, I think like Ed said, you don't need to overwater them. That's a big thing. And don't be afraid to prune it either. It'll be fine. It'll grow back. If you prune it a little too much, it's like cutting your hair. You can cut a little too much, but too much growth, it just makes a mess.
I know, Ed, that you're big into the backyard orchard culture where you really want to keep those trees at compact sizes that are manageable, like we mentioned. But how do we actually get to there? Do we do it all, that one pruning in the winter, or does it take additional pruning through the year?
I do very little winter pruning at all. It's mostly summer pruning for size control. And especially things like cherries and apricots, they don't even prune those in the winter in California. It's not recommended.
Yeah.
So But, pruning the summertime are all size control cuts. So you're really looking to, promote your fruit sets down lower in the canopy, number one. And number two is you're trying to keep the overall tree height at a particular height that's reasonable. And like I said, I'm more aggressive now in that, 8 to 10 feet used to be agreeable, not anymore. I tend to be more aggressive now in saying that it probably should be in the 5 to 6 foot range, and we should be looking at that. A lot of people may go, oh yeah, that's fine for you to say, but yes, I have done that. And yes, I had extensive, test orchards back in the 90s that we did all this research at. So I held a Santa Rosa plum for 14 years. I held it at 48 inches tall. And I got more Santa Rosa plums on it than, you could possibly want to use. And, I think it was just fine. We used to stick thin it. I'd say just go out and knock some fruit off the tree.
You just kind of just
go in and whack it with a stick. Yeah, we used to laugh about stick thinning the Santa Rosa plum.
And so that's where you get out and kind of just bash the branches.
Get a bamboo stick and just put it inside the canopy.
And anything loose just kind of shakes free.
Yeah,
and then what's
or
left
even
the
if stuff that's not loose, you're beating.
Now, I'm curious, at the home garden, I really like the idea of extending the harvest a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about how, because I know all of these trees, some have fruit that are ready to eat right now, some might have been ready a few weeks ago, and some are maybe going to be a bit more riper later in the season. What are some varieties, or how can people incorporate that harvest period into their own landscapes? Because it's nice to kind of have an extended harvest. Just personally, I love it. I like being able to go out in the garden and where there's always something I can go out there and kind of nibble on.
Oh yeah, we're always trying to extend the harvest. I mean, we pick our first fruit here in April, and I think we pick our last fruit here in October.
That's incredible.
So we're always breeding to make the season longer and tastier.
What'd you think of all this fruit you ate today?
I loved it all. It was incredible.
Come back in 2 weeks. It'll all be different.
Yeah? Is that how it is?
And so the the idea of extended harvest is called successive ripening, and it's part of backyard orchard culture in the principle. You're really trying to take and accommodate as long a period of harvest out of your backyard as you possibly can. So, if I have a wonderful nectarine that I love here and I plant it here, 2 weeks from now I can have something, completely different. 2 weeks from there I can have another, variety of fruit. And you can do that throughout the entire season. So successive ripening and that long period of harvest, that's all the Zaigers do, is create these periods of ripeness, because that's what commercial growers need too.
That's right.
All right, Ed. So I've learned so much today, but what would be your best piece of advice for someone who's new to growing a fruit tree? Let's say they heard this episode, they're like, I'm going to go down, I'm going to get myself a fruit tree, I'm going to plant it and get it going. What is your best piece of advice for that person?
Number one, just plan on size controlling your fruit tree. Don't let your fruit tree get any taller than X, and typically that recommendation would be simply no taller than you stand next to your fruit tree with your arms extended above your head. So that would be the maximum. I'm more like leaning towards saying we should even be more aggressive than that, just because of some of the constraints or some of the desires of the modern homeowner and the modern fruit lover to use less chemicals, to grow in more limited area. We probably would be thinking more in the terms of 5 to 6 feet would be a much better goal to achieve.
And I feel like if you're keeping your fruit trees 5 to 6 feet, maybe it offers you a little more space to plant more fruit trees.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean,
more variety.
Yeah, that's the goal.
So these fruits are relatively new. I mean, they're being developed right now and they're on the cutting edge. Was fruit this delicious 500 years ago? Or is it going to become more delicious?
500 years
You know
ago?
what I mean? Like
Why'd you pick 500?
Well, like did these fruits, like plums, these nectarines and peaches, like these varieties didn't even exist 500 years ago, and in the way we see them now.
They didn't.
Were they this delicious back then? Or
they didn't exist probably 200 years ago. No, 200 years ago. Okay, in this fashion. 20 years ago in this complexity.
Yeah, the standards have changed from 30 years ago, what was acceptable, to what's acceptable now.
Correct.
It's absolutely the much higher standards.
I love it. Well, I think you're raising the bar. It's probably
Absolutely.
a good thing.
People's palates change, through generations. I mean, it's a conversation that we've been having since I started coming back regularly, and that is that people's consumer palates have changed. And in many cases, the younger people are abandoning, the grocery store fruit because they're just tired of having, immature fruit that has, that's been picked too early, doesn't have any flavor, and they really don't want that anymore. And our big concern is that the farmers markets and the U-picks and things like that are going to go that way too, and they can't, because they really should be selling their fruit for a higher price, because they actually are supposed to be growing the finest varieties. Once they start disguising them as white peach, white nectarine, yellow plum, red plum, it's not a good look for a high end. And plus, you're not getting consumer loyalty, where the person eats one of these. If I told you this was a Boobop the Blam nectarine and you had it today, did you write that down? Of course you did. The name has so much value, so much importance, and we've abandoned that, in the consumer market, like grocery stores and the
or
like.
It's just generic. It's just red apple.
Correct, right. And what we're doing is we're alienating this intelligent group of young people that are coming into the market that really are trying to identify what they like, and they don't get the advantage of being able to say that variety of peach I had was the greatest peach, and I'll never forget it, and I'm going back to that person that I bought that from next year. I won't miss it.
And they even put names on apples. They don't do it for stone fruit. So that's
wild, yeah.
Yeah.
What should we do to demand better?
The worst part about the consumer going into the farmer's market, going to a U-pick or a fresh fruit stand on the side of the road and having a peach or a nectarine labeled white, yellow, peach. If it's the first time they've ever had a white peach and it tastes terrible, their association with white peaches now, in a general sense, becomes negative.
I don't like that.
I don't like white peaches.
Then you go, try this variety.
Oh, for crying out loud. I mean, we used to joke, about how we deal with more people that are victims of their limited exposure. You create exposure with name recognition. So in the fresh fruit markets, in the U-picks, in the farmers markets, we should be going up and demanding the growers there represent their fruit by name.
White peach isn't a variety, it's a descriptor. And it's a very vague descriptor.
It is a very
It's like going out to buy some shoes. You're like, hey, black shoes. All right, Ed, so if someone's motivated and fired up and they're like, man, I want to grow some of this paradise in my own house, where do they go and what can they hope to find?
Well, of course, you go to Green Acres and then you find peaches, nectarines, plums, pluots. You find, more than likely, Apriums, you find nectar plums, you find let's see, what else?
What's a good cherry?
Oh yeah, let's do some cherries. Yeah, okay, we do Plueries, and you'll find cherries. Okay, regular cherries as well.
And these are all interspecifics. You've been talking about some of those that are listed in there.
Sure.
All right, here we go.
And you'll find heirloom varieties, and you'll find brand new Zaiger varieties, and you'll find the old standard varieties. So I think Green Acres selection is probably as good as anybody's in California, as a matter of fact.
Here.
Yeah, and so, in all fairness, what do you find? Just about anything you probably want.
All right, well, that sounds pretty incredible. I love the idea of having so much to choose from. I think there's something out there for everybody. And I think no home garden is complete without, I'd even say, not just one fruit tree, several fruit trees.
Sure.
And the ones I've had today, I hope they make it to the market soon because, man, those were incredible. I mean, Lacey, you and your team here, you guys do such incredible work. The fruit kind of speaks for itself in a way. It's so stinking delicious. Lacey, if there's one last thing you want to add before we leave, I would love to hear from you. What do you love most about these trees working out here, and why should we love them too?
Oh, wow. Well, it's definitely a labor of love, and it's a long-term process. I mean, these are the varieties you tasted we picked out years and years and years ago. So it's like raising your own children, except a little more forgiving.
Oh, I love it. Well, I just want to thank you so much for opening your doors to us and having us out here. Ed, I appreciate you hanging out with us as well and make it just a fun group activity. I just loved it, and I'm going to be back next summer. Because like you said, you come back in a few weeks, everything tastes a little different. Well, I'm going to come back as soon as possible because I cannot wait to see what you're growing next.
Sounds good.
All right, we are back from our interview. Big thank you to Lacey and thank you, Ed, for breaking it all down for us. And I got to say, man, we had so much fun there. We were tasting all fruits in the orchard. We did a little challenge with you.
That was so cool.
I challenged Kevin and Ed and Lacey to see how good they were at determining the sugar levels of these fruits. And we had a bricks meter so we could actually find out for real what the actual sugar content was. And everyone's guessing. That was fun.
And I quickly found out they are much better at it than me. Granted, they have the experience, but and honestly, even when they were kind of giving their estimates, the sugars were almost always higher.
Oh,
I mean,
know.
the sugar level, the bricks, I mean, it was incredibly high.
These fruits are so tasty and sugarific. But you know what I learned from Ed that I didn't know about before was he kept talking about the acid levels of fruits, right? Subacids and all this stuff. I'm like, what is that? And then he had me taste the Soldorado.
So that one's on the market.
Yeah, that one's out there now. And he talked about how acidic it was, and I realized that's what I like. That's what's giving me these goosebumps
Where it's kind of
when
sweet
I eat it.
and tangy.
It's like, the tang, but it's like making the sugar pop even more. And that's what I like in a peach or a nectarine. I like that acid. That stuff is good.
That Soldorado was incredible, and that's a genetic dwarf. I mean,
so cool.
4-foot tall tree. You can keep it really stout. You can grow them in a container. That was like a yellow fleshed nectarine.
Right.
Holy moly. So they hooked us up. We got to not only got to walk through and taste a bunch, but they gave us a little, paper bag. They're like, hey, take a few home, share with the family.
Did you share?
Dude, so much. It was so much fun to kind of share with people, slicing them. Like, look at this interspecific plum. These are all one. This is a fruit that doesn't exist, which is a weird thing to say when you're handing somebody a physical. But you have to say this doesn't exist. It's not on the market. You can't get. So cool. The family loved it. Did you do the same?
I did the same. I shared some with some friends. I did the whole setup, explaining where it came from. This is the fruit of the future, just like you were saying, and slicing it up and giving it to them. They got the wow factor. They went, wow. Their eyes popped open. They're like, this is really, really good. So if you want to grow fruits like this and appreciate the fruits that Lacey and Ed have, been so great at helping to develop, go check it out. We sell these fruit trees at the stores, and you can put one of these in your backyard, keep it small, and then get this wow factor for yourself. So I had a great time learning all about it. I hope you guys did too. Kevin, that's all for this week. Go ahead and take us out.
Dang it. I loved it. I felt like Charlie Bucket and with Willy Wonka. I mean, Willy Wonka's got nothing on Lacey and Ed out there. I felt like I had the golden ticket. And to be out there was just, trip. I mean, I loved it. I absolutely loved every moment of it. And what I really think is these fruit trees are putting the time and effort to make them the absolute best they can be. They're unique, they're tasty, and there's probably one out there for somebody, just for you, if you can really craft your own backyard orchard. And I know if anyone who's listening is like me, our space is very limited in our own gardens. And so if you are going to dedicate some space to a plant or a fruit tree like this, it might as well be something that is just out of this world delicious. So that's what I loved about this week's episode. So huge thanks to Lacey and Ed, and a massive thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in. And also a big thanks to you, Austin. Another great edit, bud. You've been putting in the hours, and you do such a great job every week. I love it.
Thank you, sir.
And it makes the show all that much better. And I think people appreciate that. I've been seeing a lot of positive comments in the Facebook group about people really enjoying the podcast. It was like, man, it made my day, perked me up. I loved it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I know it's a lot of work, but man, a great week. I mean, come on. Does it get any better than just walking out with some professionals who have a ton of knowledge? You can pick their brain and also their fruit trees. So I loved it. Simultaneously, it was just the best day ever. I loved it. So until next week, garden friends, come back, check with us next week. We're gonna have another great episode. I know it's hot, so please deep water those plants. Keep an eye on your garden as much as needed. But check back with us next week, because we're going to have another great episode for you. So until then, garden friends, happy gardening to you all. And please, never stop growing. Pluots!
And Apriums. And Pluots.
My family loved the Pluots. It's I didn't know if it was the world's smallest plum or the world's largest cherry.
It was.